Hello, everyone, and welcome to this another session of the Tech Talk. And first off, a great welcome to you, Sridhar. I'm super excited to have you here. I've been waiting to speak to you for a while. We booked this a few months back, so please introduce yourself.
Hey, Peter, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I'm super excited to be here as well. I know we've been chatting about this Tech Talk for a while. As some of you know, I'm Sridhar Mullapudi. I lead the product team for Citrix. I've been with Citrix almost 22 years. So, and happy to be here and share some things on where we are going in terms of strategy as well as product roadmap, and have a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you. And as I'm looking at the screen, I'm realizing I'm probably more gray than you are, but it strikes me every time I see this picture that they probably need to be updated, at least on my part. So anyway, no, but great. And as we, I say this to every person I chat with, this is a tech talk. It's not a selling marketing event as per se. I consider the people tuning in for being reasonably technical on the Citrix products. I used to present it like a Citrix user group kind of panel discussion. And I know we prepared a little bit of slides, and I'm also going to monitor the kind of the chat for questions, so that we try to have a little bit of interactivity with the people that sign up, and try to take the questions as it makes sense. But kind of to kick it off, Sridhar, you have, I think, at least what I know with Citrix, one of the people that have the longest and widest and more kind of in-depth insight into Citrix DaaS solution. It changed its name a couple of times, and recently we did also make a kind of a repackaging, and so I wanted you to come on and not only talk about that, but talk a little bit about where you see us in the DaaS space and looking a little bit ahead. So I thought it would be good timing also to do this in early April, because we had the intention to have this kind of repackaging. I think, was it last week? I think we came out with it.
Yep. We've been working on it for a while, but yeah, it was announced last week. Yeah.
So if you take it from the start, Citrix DaaS, how would you describe that and our focus going forward?
Yeah, definitely. And first, maybe Peter, I take a few minutes, kind of really explain the terminology, because the way we use DaaS, desktop as a service, and how it aligns with even the industry and how analysts and customers think about it as well. So maybe let me just frame what we mean by DaaS. Right now, most of you know Citrix for virtual apps and desktops, VDI deployments, right? That's been on the left-hand side, your typical IT managed virtual desktops for virtual applications, right? You got full control over infrastructure. A lot of our customers use LCSR for the long-term predictability. You handle all the management and workloads in either traditional data centers, or if you have hybrid rights cloud provisioning, with some of the recent changes, you could put it on a public cloud of your choice, right? That's your typical virtual apps and desktops, kind of a VDI on-prem IT managed environment. Now, several years back, we launched virtual apps and desktops cloud service, right? Which is what we call hybrid DaaS. And in hybrid DaaS, essentially Citrix is managing the control plane, the infrastructure, the management aspects of it, but the actual workloads are still in the customer control, right? The VMs, the applications, where you're hosting the applications and desktops. So it kind of gives you control when it comes to security, compliance, data sovereignty, as well as other requirements why you want to put the workloads in a data center or your own control versus management in Citrix. That's the hybrid DaaS. The simplified DaaS, is an evolution of some of the offerings we had, and it's a growing focus for us as well, because a lot of newer customers and newer use cases want a fully turnkey deployment where they want the whole stack, bundle capacity, as a managed service as well. At least 90% of it, with still some control on the application side, with pay-as-you-go for the infrastructure billing, in the whole offering, especially for newer customers, newer use cases. And so that's the, simplified DaaS, or sometimes we might have used turnkey DaaS, right? So those are the kind of the three terminology we use. Now, the beauty of this is for us, it's a single product code-based infrastructure that can support it. So, you can start anywhere, kind of, grow, or you can have it, hybrid deployment as well. So that's kind of what we mean by, desktop as a service. And in terms of desktop as a service, what is included, expect all the things we've traditionally done in virtual apps and desktop service, right? In one sense, it's renaming of what we have, a virtual apps and desktop service, plus it's adding new capabilities, including managed capacity, simplified DaaS deployments, and everything else. So, so we are basically, using this as a way to kind of, paint a broader picture on what DaaS does, provide flexibility, as well as simplicity and choice as well, and supporting all the use cases you get to know for through Citrix for a long time.
Got it. And let me also add, because I was just reading the documentation a little bit, and we talk about a customer installed control plane, and some of the terminologies seem to be that the good old CVAD, this virtual app and desktop product, is still being named Citrix Virtual App and Desktop, which would be seen kind of the VDI part, right? So as long as you're on that part and the LTSR in documentation, and when we refer to it, we still talk about that one. Yes, the one to the left is still Citrix Virtual App and Desktop, and as soon as you go into a service, whether it's hybrid, or you'll talk a little bit about the offering around simplicity, it's essentially then called DaaS. That would be my kind of take on that.
Exactly. In some ways, the DaaS includes both the hybrid DaaS, which is a lot of customers deploy today, especially large enterprise customers, and as well as simplified DaaS. So both of them kind of constitute what we call as DaaS. You're absolutely right. The left-hand side, which is our LTSR and CR, that is still Citrix Virtual Apps and Desktop.
Yeah. Cool.
Yep. As you said, we recently announced new packaging for Citrix Desktop as a service, and I kind of want to take a few minutes to really explain the rationale behind it, as well as some of the changes, right? So we did an extensive interview with a lot of customers and partners and everything else, and some of the things that came up was one, simplification and adding a lot more value in the packaging we already have. Like, for example, session recording used to be only in some of the premium packages. Now it's kind of available for every edition, right? Whether it's advanced, advanced, plus, or premium plus, right? It's just, putting more value in some of the offerings, as well as we do innovation, bring some of the other capabilities we believe customers are going to benefit across the board. Remote PC, obviously, being added some of the newer editions as well as part of the cloud service offering. Now, if you look at the newer offerings, whether it's DaaS Advanced Plus, or DaaS Premium, you kind of see, the equivalent services which we had before, which we used to call Virtual Apps Advanced, Virtual Apps and Desktop Service Advanced, and Virtual Apps and Desktop Service Premium, right, or Workspace Premium Plus. But the other changes is adding new capability, session recording as a classic example, plus adding other capabilities in the premium offering as well. We're putting things like adaptive authentication, and we can talk a little bit more about adaptive authentication, but the functionality there is pretty simple, right? Which is when you turn on adaptive authentication, we look at the endpoint, the logon, the state of the endpoint, and everything else, and based on that, provide contextual access to those applications and desktops, right? Back in the days, we used to call this smart access, but now it's a lot more not just contextual, but it's also dynamic. Like this happens all the time, because a lot of times the security signals, whether your authentication, your endpoint status, changes dynamically, right? You cannot do a static check once, give access, and expect during the time of the session nothing changed. Sometimes things change a lot faster, so it's a lot more dynamic as well. And last but not the least, we introduced DaaS Premium Plus, an offering which includes everything, including analytics, right? It's a huge change for us. Before, analytics was an add-on. Now we included both performance analytics, security analytics as part of our Premium Plus offering as well. So that kind of helps you summarize how we transition some of the existing offerings into the newer DaaS offering, added new capabilities, plus introduced a higher tier offering that includes things like analytics, and as well as app protection, which used to be add-ons. Now they're part of some of the premium offerings.
Yeah. Two points I noticed also is that DaaS Advanced is only Server OS, and DaaS Advanced Plus includes Server OS and desktop. So for the ones who, and we know we have customers who very much cherish the good old CNAP or CVAD on server. It's still an addition which is reasonably feature rich, and that you can then add on things that is more closely related to the DaaS solution. Adaptive auth being, for example, I'm not getting too much in the weed, but adaptive auth is also a part on the SPA, which people know as secure access to web internal and external application. So that is adaptive auth on that side, but this adaptive auth is obviously relating to the DaaS application and then naturally connecting to, would you say, smart access, which I thought would be, I've been waiting for this. I know there's a lot of customers who like to use that capability of taking away some of those client features, cut and paste, save locally, and so forth in certain scenarios, and then adapt it to maybe requesting a stronger authentication, simply to do both giving access but still making sure it's secure. So I thought that was something that it stood out a little bit.
Yeah, and the roadmap for adaptive authentication also takes signals. For example, if you have an EDR deployed on the endpoint, like CrowdStrike or something, you can take signals from that and actually control access, right? So that it's a rich service, and as you said, a lot of our customers are probably going to start for virtual apps and desktops or desktop as a service kind of use cases. The beauty, the way we built it is, as you kind of move into secure private access and zero trust for SaaS and web, it's the same infrastructure. You just turn it on and it kind of works, for SaaS and web. So that's the beauty of how we're kind of building it.
Yeah. And of course, also the app protection thing, which is also part of that. Like, how do you deliver in unmanaged territory or BYO or whatever it is? So that one is important one.
App protection, Peter, has definitely been a pleasant surprise for us in terms of how many customers are adopting. I think few reasons for that. I think post-pandemic, we've seen an explosion of device usage from home, sometimes BYO or unmanaged devices. And so app protection provides that extra layer of security, right? As they say, defense in depth for customers and users who are using their applications, through Citrix Workspace and Workspace apps. So I would say we're pleasantly surprised and happy to see, great adoption of app protection capabilities. And going back to the theme of adding more value, that was one reason why we started putting some of those capabilities into our premium and premium plus offerings.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff.
Yeah, and moving a little bit as well, we also, as part of these new packaging offerings, we're introducing hyperscaler-specific DaaS packaging, right? So, I'll start with Microsoft Azure, and I'll talk and then go to Google Cloud. On Microsoft Azure, we had virtual app standard for Azure, so we're kind of renaming that for DaaS for standard. The new things there is it not only supports Azure, it supports on-prem as well. So customers who pick Microsoft stack, whether it's Azure or on-prem, can use this and very tailored towards Azure stack. So that's a new offering as well. Including, as I said, session recording capability available across everything else. But one of the new things we're doing here is, for the first time, we're introducing what we're calling a Citrix optimization pack for Azure Virtual Desktop. So this is for customers who adopted AVD native cloud service, right? Not just the multi-user Windows 10 session of AVD, but are using the Azure Virtual Desktop for a small deployment and want to just add management, security, kind of user experience capabilities on top of that. So this is our first incarnation of that. We're basically releasing Workspace Environment Manager, which helps with scalability, performance, and everything else for customers who adopted AVD native service. So we do see customers, some especially smaller deployments, 50, 100 users kind of thing, where they might start there and we're kind of building. It just kind of goes back to choice and flexibility we want to provide. So this is definitely something new for us, and kind of we're looking forward to kind of customer partner feedback and kind of building that roadmap where they might not want to move the whole infrastructure. They're a new customer, they're starting really small, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and these are bought per user per year or per user per month, concurrent or concurrent per month. So it has the great flexibility, and you can buy them straight off the marketplace, or you can buy them through the normal Citrix channel, as far as I understand, right? So we also try to make that as available as possible.
Yeah, most of these keys, as you can see on the license model, they're either per user per year, per user per month as well, and are concurrent per user, per month or per user per year. The optimization pack is more per user per year, because that basically sits on top of AVD you already have, which is done on a user basis.
Yeah. I like that. And to your point about being surprised, I'm positively surprised how well the VEM has worked, specifically when you pay per minute. There's a lot of things gained, like money gained, or because of the fact that we basically get more people on the same instance, or that you can use a lower instance because of the optimization we have in the VEM. So that comes back, I know, in many conversations we had, that people are really happy about it. One thing I noticed was also that it says on the cloud provisioning for the standard, it says Azure or on-prem. So I assume it only supports one resource location, but it gives you a possibility to start on-prem if you then have to, and then you can then use it if you want. But if you need hybrid at a continuous basis, it would be the advanced versions going forward, I would assume, right? That's one of the differences.
Yeah, if you want optionality for multi-cloud and hybrid, then the previous slide we talked about, the DaaS advanced other packages would do that. But if you pick one cloud and hybrid, then like if the cloud is Azure, but you also have on-prem, then that would be this would be the kind of a lower price offering that works for that scenario. And same for Google Cloud as well.
Yeah, and the standard one, both I think on Google and Azure, is like $10 per user per month, which is SRP. So it's actually lower, I think, than previously. And the optimization pack comes in around $5 or something, if I understand it, roughly speaking. So I think that also makes sense.
Right, that's the retail price before any discounts and things. But yeah, absolutely. I think one of the goals there was to, traditionally VDI and infrastructure had a big entry cost, right, in terms of standing up the infrastructure and other stuff. So with cloud and DaaS, I think we can definitely reduce that. You can start small and get all the benefits of Citrix, by starting small and kind of, making that successful and then kind of growing from there, right? So it's one of the benefits of cloud. Start small, even pay as you go for capacity and things like that, and then kind of scale up once you feel successful with that project, as opposed to traditional VDI has been you invest a lot and kind of try to make it work.
Yeah. Hey, Sridhar, we only got a few questions. I want to run them by you if you don't mind.
Sure.
You can actually go back to that one. So first off was a question actually on the previous, but anyway, is there a provisioning for cloud in open release now, meaning provisioning server? And if yes, does that work in both Azure and AWS? I know I prepared a question which any passionate CVAD would get MCS. Are you an MCS or PVS guys? We'll get to that in a question, but just in broadly speaking on provisioning services and MCS, you can just touch on it maybe a little bit now, or at least answer the question if it's possible to use this technology in a cloud instance.
Yeah, and we kind of had I would say, three-phase approach to provisioning services, Peter, right? The first one, for when we supported it for virtual apps and desktop service, it was still running in the customer resource location, right? So when you have VDAs, you use PVS for managing, but it was still, customer kind of managing. And you can use our control plane, and it was mostly for kind of on-prem kind of deployments, right? And second, what we did is we added support for PBS on Azure, where you actually want to run, provisioning services on Azure, because that's kind of where your VDAs are. And we work very closely with the Azure team to, get the networking and performance and everything else working. So that's PBS on Azure. We're doing the same thing on PBS on Google as well, which is right now in check review. It's going to GA later, and at some point we'll end up probably doing PBS on AWS as well. So. And then the third phase where we are looking at longer term, I think next year and stuff, is like make PBS a full-on cloud service, so you don't have to actually even manage, any infrastructure, whether it's the databases or the PBS servers and other stuff. So think of that kind of a three-phase approach. This one is talking about, obviously from an entitlement perspective, you get all the three kind of modes. But right now, the phase 2 is where we are enabling supporting PBS natively on Azure, Google Cloud and other clouds. So.
Okay, that's good. Another question was, why no optimization pack for GCP?
I think the answer is kind of pretty simple, which is, Google doesn't have a first-party service. They use Citrix as one of the premium partners for that, right? So there's no native Google Cloud service for DaaS. Citrix is one of the premium partners for them. So there's optimization pack doesn't make sense in the Google Cloud because there's no native Google Cloud DaaS service, right? With Microsoft, you do have native AVD service, and some customers sometimes go with AVD service as opposed to going to Citrix DaaS. And they are, instead of asking the customer to kind of like, hey, migrate to Citrix DaaS for all the reasons, some customers want to start with AVD service and instead of getting some third-party management and other packs, they want to get the Citrix optimization pack. And so that is the reason why it doesn't exist for Google Cloud, if it makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And I guess there was also a question about why not DaaS Premium in Azure, because we saw the DaaS Premium for Google, but then again we have more integrations also in the advanced, I guess, edition. So it's just how do we package them in a simplest way without having a package sprawl?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the previous slide you talked about, we have the premium and premium plus and others as well. But yeah, I mean, we're flexible, but at the same time, you don't want to have so many pricing packaging that kind of there's not a lot of delineation. Yeah.
Fair enough. What else? Is there hardware acceleration available on all these platforms? I assume hardware acceleration, as in maybe GPU or GPU, is one of the questions.
So what was the question?
Well, the question was, is hardware acceleration available on all these platforms? I assume GPU maybe is what we're referring to.
Yeah, the simple answer is, from a capability perspective, it is available. We're not charging anything extra or anything like that. I think depending on the cloud you pick, whether it's Azure, Google Cloud, or AWS, and what kind of VMs you're picking in terms of NVIDIA or other GPU capabilities, there might be some differences. But yeah, the capability when we have on the cloud is available for these editions. Yeah.
Got it. Well, we'll do a few more, and then I'll get you to move on. There was one question regarding. Actually, you can go. I think the hybrid right was coming up, so you can go to that slide. It says, "Is the on-prem use right in hybrid cloud provisioning time bombed? Am I urged to move my on-prem control plane to the cloud after an amount of time?" I mean, the way I look at it is the fact that previously, the only way to actually have workloads in the cloud was to either use a bit of an older on-prem version and install the whole on-prem with what a CVAD looks like on-prem in the cloud, or you have to migrate yourself into the cloud service, and then you can have a resource location in the cloud. What we have now made with the newer hybrid rights is a couple of things. One of them is that you can, if you absolutely want to, install your own control plane, as we call it, like the complete CVAD implementation in a cloud if you want. And you can also extend, your current on-prem solution to a cloud provisioned resource location, well, not a resource location, cloud provision with MCS and PVS. So there's no real cloud connector concept in that matter, but you can expand your on-prem into a cloud. However, you still would need to license-wise migrate to a cloud service. So you can't keep your perpetual license. In fact, there's a license issue or license blocker, so you need to get to a cloud service. and by then you can get new license files, get them onto your on-prem, and then you can expose your on-prem with a MCS to PVS streamed couple of machines, right?
Yeah. At a very simple level, Peter, think of like what we've changed and what we've simplified for customers is, look, if you move to cloud subscription with hybrid rights, think of getting this as a universal license, right? From a conceptually speaking, which means, if you have, I'll just hypothetically say 1,000 licenses with cloud subscription with hybrid rights, you could have some users, traditional on-prem with some maybe using DR side or some provisioning in the cloud, or you could, quote unquote, lift and shift LCSR into a public cloud, or use Citrix Cloud, in our CVAD and DaaS service. In all the three modes, you can mix and match, and as long as you are current on your subscription, there's kind of no limit, right? You just continue to kind of use all those things, and obviously you're not going to double dip, but as long as it's the same user, if you are doing it from a user or device perspective or CCU, then it's a connection perspective, you can mix and match. And I think customers, obviously love that flexibility. And before, when we said like, hey, look, the lift and shift provisioning is not supported, it really created a lot of challenges because in some cases, we didn't have a control plane on a geo, or because of security and compliance, customers didn't want to use, and we said like, look, just creating kind of like a subscription with hybrid rights, kind of provides that universal license type approach for customers, and so they can use any deployment mode they want, right? Now, obviously, we're innovating a lot on cloud and cloud control plane and management, so we want to create definitely a pull motion where the customer should gravitate towards it when they are ready, but not being forced, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, no, good. There was another question, and I just passed that on in the chat to everyone. It was a good question around, is there a metrics on how to existing services like Workspace Premium Plus translate to the new DaaS edition? And I've seen a little bit on PowerPoints, at least internally, but in PowerPoint format, but I passed on the two links, which is, one is the current feature metrics online, and on that online page, there's also reference to the PDF with the previous features, right? So basically just a summary, and we'll pass on the presentation. I assume that's okay, Sridhar, that we pass on the presentation as well, that included kind of the new structure to everyone.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
Good. Final question, let me see if I can read this one right. What addition to previous performance analytics in Director does this new one bring you? You're stepping into XLA measurement territory here. Are you getting closer to complete experience like eternity?
It's a good question. Now, obviously, Director is included as part of all the additions for a while. Performance analytics now either could be an add-on or it's included in the DaaS Premium Plus offering, right? Both performance and security analytics as well. The goal for performance analytics was, going beyond, day-to-day operations and help desk and support, and really looking at the signals we get from the endpoint, from the network, from the application, plus the signals we get from the ecosystem, right? Whether it's Microsoft or Google or AWS or if it's performance, the application vendors itself, security, the endpoint vendors itself, and really trying to synthesize all those things, which can be translated into simple, either a score for user experience, understanding how it's going, trending in the right direction. We use some machine learning as well, augmented learning as part of that, so can really add value. The question whether are you going into a digital experience monitoring, I would say right now our focus has been in the Citrix Workspace ecosystem, right? So which is, if you're using our products, yes, we want to provide full digital experience monitoring for those capabilities. How far we go beyond that, some it's going to be partnership, some it's going to be native. I would say it probably depends on our customer needs and customer roadmap, going beyond Citrix kind of an ecosystem, whether it's monitoring native devices or other things, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, no, it does.
The other thing, for example, we're doing with performance analytics is as we're extending that with our secure private access. So if you're using SaaS and web through secure private access through our browser, our VPN-less zero trust solution, we want to do the same thing like we've done for DaaS. Provide you insights on performance and security analytics as well, right? So we're definitely extending that.
Cool. All right. Good. So there was actually some questions also. You could type in some questions prior to register for this event, and there was quite a lot of them that was mentioning how our integration or collaboration with Microsoft is, or value add on Azure Virtual Desktop. So I thought I'll touch on this as well. So we've had numerous webinars, and I've been on quite a lot of meetings around this, because naturally a customer would start with what they have, the E3 or E5, and they want to kind of evaluate what they have. Me personally, this AVD is kind of interesting because it has brought back a lot of life, or at least a lot of attention on a technology into areas where it wasn't discussed in the past. Because sometimes, at least what I can see, is sometimes the desktop or application virtualization is used by IT and used to solve a lot of application related problems, but they might not really understand the full concept of it. And to me, this notion that Microsoft put light on this, having got ourselves into a lot of new accounts, or at least a lot of new scenarios. At the same time, newer people to this solution might not always know what it would mean to run let's say a few hundred of them when you're starting to have image sprawl or maybe different use cases and stuff like that. So these value add conversations has been really interesting for me, because back in the day, Citrix have always been kind of a value add onto Microsoft. So it's been a super partner for us. At the same time, we have to earn our own value, right? Because Citrix, the licensing specifically for CCU, and many times they don't understand the CCU either, so they say that's a lot of money for the license, not realizing that they can share them and so forth. So, kind of stopping from the top, where are you? How do you view the Citrix and the Microsoft relationship, and what's your thought around specifically AVD from your point?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, Peter, we just came back from a Microsoft summit last week. Myself, Joe, a few other leaders as well. We're up there talking to Microsoft on, future roadmap, both on AVD as well as Windows 365. Look, the partnership has never been better, stronger, right? I think in a lot of ways, people ask the standard question like, "Hey, AVD, where is the Citrix?" It's the same thing as you said. Like, look, Microsoft is innovating on the platform, right? AVD, one of the things they're doing is Windows 10 multi-user, which is great. Getting all the benefits of multi-session cost, at the same time, making it a full multi-tenant OS is great. They're, obviously innovating on the AVD native service because, like Citrix, while we've been great, we don't have as much breadth and depth and penetration in every customer account. And a lot of times customers look at VDI as a heavy investment project. So I think the barrier to entry is going lower, which is great. Microsoft is actually increasing the TAM. If you've seen some of the analyst estimates, a lot more customers are coming into virtual delivery, whether it's apps and desktops, than ever before. I think one, because, hybrid work post-pandemic, and second, Microsoft is investing in the platform, right? And which is a great news. Like you want the platform to be strong. And I think that is the exciting part. And yes, it's on Citrix to kind of drive innovation on top of that. And the way we are doing innovation on top of that is different things, right? One, we support, hybrid multi-cloud kind of a deployment. So a lot of times customers have applications everywhere, on-prem, Azure, sometimes Google and AWS. So we kind of support that. And not only support it, we actually make management of that really simple. Like, image portability service. Can I have a single image that cuts across on-prem and Azure and Google, so I don't have to have multiple images and galleries and everything else? Yes, that's something we are innovating on that, right? And when I say hybrid multi-cloud, it kind of goes to more things. Devices. right? Like some customers have Chromebooks, in addition to Windows and Mac, and they'll have 10 clients. So we're innovating on the endpoint and providing the choice and flexibility as well. Same with the network, right? For example, through Gateway Service, we have our points of presence in Azure, AWS, and pretty soon Google, because you want to have the proxy, the gateway sitting very close to where the applications are, whether it's Office or Google Cloud or AWS. So, there's definitely a hybrid multi-cloud angle that we support across that customers appreciate on top of AVD as well. Plus, we help, reducing the cost as well as the management experience. Second, security has been a big one, whether it's adaptive authentication, app protection, bunch of other capabilities, things like auto scale, those are other capabilities we're building on top of that. And last but not the least, optimizing operations. It's one thing to set up a 1,500 user environment. It's another thing to kind of scale it and run it, on a day-to-day basis for mission critical applications and desktops, right? That's kind of where, our solutions, whether it's Director or analytics, make a huge difference, in terms of how do you manage it, on a day-to-day basis. And just doing a click down, if you look at it, a lot of you guys probably understand some of these capabilities, but a lot of the reasons why customers are still picking Citrix on top of Azure Virtual Desktop for all these things, whether it's management and control, user experience and collaboration, supporting not just Teams, for example, ability to support, Zoom, Cisco WebEx and other, telephony applications, because, if you have to support even one of those applications, you want to make sure the user can take those calls, right? Even if it's with a third-party partner or somebody else. Same with on a lot of focus on security and compliance. One of the reasons why we put session recording as part of all the capabilities, building a lot around adaptive authentication, analytics, app protection. Third-party IDPs is a big one. Customers are like, look, sometimes I want to actually use Okta, as my identity providers, not just Azure AD, and provide SSO capabilities. So we definitely, adding that great user experience, security, and choice across the board for hybrid multi-cloud deployments, and that's one of the reasons why customers pick Citrix even when they're looking at Azure. And just in terms of TCO, if you add the Azure infrastructure cost plus all the operational costs plus any third-party add-ons you need to kind of buy, from a total cost of ownership, Citrix is still pretty competitive. And now with some of the newer offerings we have, where we reduce the price for the entry-level offerings, I think we have a very compelling story why customers should consider Citrix, even if they're looking at native AVD service. But no, the partnership has been great. We work with the Office and the Teams team really closely for optimization. We work with Azure a lot, compute storage, for example, PBS on Azure. We work a lot with their networking and other things. We work closely with the AVD team, optimizing Windows 10 multi-user session. We're working very closely with the Windows 365 team. I can't talk a lot about it because some of those things are NDA, but expect a lot more innovation coming there as well in second half of this year. So we are definitely excited. I think we're really excited that Microsoft is investing in the platform, and Citrix is kind of raising the bar and adding more value and really bringing more and more customers who never looked at virtualization or virtual delivery before, right? This is a great way to provide a great experience and a secure workspace, right? At much lower cost than trying to deploy physical and everything else. So we are definitely excited.
Cool. And I can agree with you on this kind of calculation as well, because we have been, because of the WEM, and it depends also a little bit if it's server load and how heavy the workload is, specifically for dedicated Windows 10 desktops, which a lot of customers will start preferring to start with because that's what they have maybe when they enter into this kind of VDI concept. That could sometimes even carry the whole complete cost actually of the Citrix part. And then of course also the user experience with all the, just HDX and frame per second conversation on what bandwidth you use. I just saw the other, we haven't talked about the LTSR release. There was actually an LTSR release coming out. A lot of new things coming out on that versioning, and one of them being almost twice or even 3 times higher frame per second. I think we had something like 120 frames in 1080p or 60 frame per second on 4K resolution, and that's like Netflix on your super big TV kind of performance, right? So we're delivering some really nice user experience, even for those high graphic workloads or challenging workloads. And it'll, auto scale, so we only run them when we need to. And the last piece is really the image management. Like if you haven't run a mid-size VDI operations and starting to get those image sprawls, to your point, it's not about supporting it the first week, it's about supporting it day 120 and still had to done 15 updates and still having a pristine image. I think those are the things. So it's not unlike what we normally do value add on in the on-prem, but it definitely expanding the use case. And for simple use cases, maybe you don't need all that stuff, and maybe the WEM is a good starting point. So I think that makes sense as well. Cool.
Great summary.
I have one. Coming back to the questions, there was one question regarding something, the hardware support. Once you run a VM in a cloud instance, the question, I'm not sure if it's our job to do, but do we have access to the Intel Hardware Acceleration Execution Manager, the HAXM? As far as I understand, it's to do with the support kind of in the Windows hypervisor for this and do some hardware acceleration, because there might be applications in the VM that have a need to either those platform, the Windows hypervisor platform or the hardware acceleration execution manager. Do you know? I thought that was a question more to the cloud providers, because we will use whatever we can see from the hardware. Would you have any insight on this?
Yeah, it's a good question. In some ways, we are definitely agnostic to it, but maybe Peter, let's follow up, to make sure, we understand the details, and then maybe get back. But yeah, I mean, we're definitely agnostic to it. But why don't we follow up and take that question?
Cool, I'll do it. No worries. Yeah. All right. Cool. No more questions. There was one question also, when you have, for example, CVA Premium CCU, and then there was no premium on what edition would you get once you transfer? And I guess the answer is that you get DaaS Premium. So both CVAD Premium and CVAD with D Premium get DaaS Premium when you convert, right?
Yeah, like so. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there you go. That's the one.
Yeah. Desktop Premium, like you get the DaaS Premium. Yeah, exactly. That's what you get. Yeah, and cool. They should have these slides available, so they should take a look at it. Yeah. Cool. Next topic.
Yeah. Well, I have a few questions more after, but let's. What do we have? About 15 minutes at least. So give a few more minutes if there's any more questions. But please continue.
Sure. Yeah, I want to shift gears a little bit. Talk about one of the newer offering we just announced, which is Secure Private Access. It really provides a zero trust access to your web and SaaS applications. And why? Why? Because a lot of our customers have been using Citrix infrastructure for secure access to virtual apps and virtual desktops, right? This is just a natural extension for us, leveraging our, NetScaler and ADC gateway technologies, plus building a lot of the capabilities in workspace and analytics to really provide secure browser-based access to web and SaaS apps. We are seeing for that is really one, ability to protect IP sanctioned applications. Again, so you can do the same thing with virtual apps or a desktop, but some customers are like, look, I have one application that's sitting kind of behind my firewall, and I want to provide a contractor access. I don't want to set up a whole virtual app or a desktop and everything else. I just want to provide it native through the Chrome or Edge browser and through a BYO, and I don't want to do a full VPN for that, right? So that is kind of the use case that's resonating a lot. It's growing, and then the other thing they like about it is we build all the adaptive authentication, adaptive access as well while you're accessing that application. Like for example, within Citrix, we have Tableau that's kind of sitting in our data centers, and so we provide secure access to that as well, either through our virtual apps or desktops, or through secure private access, so you can access that natively, or sometimes it's IT tools or our own internal applications we build, and essentially customers are, while they ramped up on VPN, most of them are trying to move away from a full VPN solution just because it's not the most secure. They don't want to provide access to full network. They want to provide just access to that application, to that particular user and device through native browsers. And if you really look at the capabilities, as I said, all the capabilities you expect. I mean, we used to call this, when we introduced the first version of that, is workspace security. You kind of were doing it through the workspace app, but now we support native browsers. We support native applications as well without a full VPN, right? So you have a secure tunnel, per app tunnel as well, with adaptive access and security controls built into it. And whether you can use a native browser that's embedded in workspace app, we call it the workspace browser. Great capability. We've done a lot of enhancements there, or sometimes you can use a native browser like a Chrome browser or Edge to kind of provide that application as well. And as part of this, we've also integrated our secure browsing cloud service as well. So in some instances where you don't want to run anything locally, we've integrated where that just single application, for example, it could be access to Facebook or Instagram for your social marketing team, but you don't want them to be running anything locally as well. You could use a secure browser service as well that's fully integrated, right? So we're definitely excited for this. For us, it's a natural extension for what we've always done, providing secure access to virtual apps and desktops, and kind of now going into native SaaS and web. And we support both agent-based and agentless. So agentless is basically browser-based access, but sometimes you need an agent-based as well, especially if you're supporting applications that do more than HTTP, supporting other protocols, native protocols as well. So we kind of do both of them. And whether those are running in your data center, internal web applications, right, sitting behind the firewall, and you don't want to expose them to the internet, that's a secure way to access, or it could be public cloud applications, either directly or through a secure browser service, because some customers are like, look, I don't want to expose any public cloud SaaS applications unless it goes through a remote browser. We support that as well. So it's a great way of providing native access to SaaS and web applications, and definitely excited about it. All the other things that you expect, integration on the endpoint through workspace app, analytics for performance and security, they're all integrated as well. And we've created a very simple way to onboard customers who are already using Citrix Cloud and virtual apps and desktops. So it's easy on the management side as well as the user side. So I'll pause there for a second, see if there's any questions on secure private access.
There is a few license questions. We're still back on CVAD, quite a few of them.
Sure.
Yeah. But let me not forget them. I'll do one here. It says, just to clarify, does Citrix Secure Private Access require on-prem ADC appliance or any other on-prem infrastructure other than the cloud connectors or VDAs?
Yeah, so if you have an ADC gateway, you definitely can use that for some of the adaptive authentication capabilities and everything else, right? We absolutely support that because some customers want to do that. But a lot of customers don't want to do that, right? They want a full-on cloud service. So we build gateway and proxy capabilities as part of our secure private access as well. So in that case, you don't need it, right? Obviously, we are hosting the gateway capabilities and all the proxy capabilities as well that we use to provide that secure tunnel through our own cloud service. So in that case, you don't need it. But we support hybrid because some customers are happy to use the cloud service where the data traffic is going through our POPs and everything else. Some customers want to use their existing gateway for this traffic, kind of like the old unified gateway approach, if you think about it. So we kind of support both models, but making it really simple. There are new use cases. It can be all done through cloud.
Cool. No, that makes sense. All right. There was a similar, well, there was another question that says, is there a roadmap for the Zero Trust network access agent to be always on, much like the Cisco VPN client?
Yeah, it's a good question. In fact, what we are doing for the agent-based approach is, if you'll actually see this, we have the Citrix Sso app, right, which is the VPN application we have. We have millions of users using that today, and we are going to actually leverage that and unify the clients, so you don't have like a client sprawl going on, where that becomes your secure private access, and it can either do a full tunnel VPN if customers want that, or it can be just a per app kind of a VPN use case. I mean, not technically VPN, but per app tunnel itself to do secure private access. And so that's the plan to kind of use it. It's a good question. Yeah, in that case, depending on the mode, yeah, it can always, like, look, once you deploy it for that application, it's always running, right? In the sense that the user doesn't have to kind of launch it and everything else. Now, obviously, sometimes there's a timeout on authentication. They'll ask the user to re-authenticate it, but it should be always on for that use case.
Cool. Makes sense. I think we have, no, you go. We have another question, but we should be able to make it before we wrap it up. So if you want to just.
Yeah, just one last slide. I want to talk a little bit on application delivery and security as well. There's a lot going on traditionally, as we call NetScaler and ADC. There's three big things we're working, right? And hopefully you've seen the recent announcement of ADNS service, including ADC as a service for AWS and clouds. There are three big use cases we are focused on from a strategy perspective, right? Applications that are moving to cloud, in a hybrid multi-cloud. So with Citrix ADC, you can kind of unify that app deployment for on-prem, private, public clouds using ADM, Application Delivery Manager, as a control plane, and getting pool licensing so you can get capacity across everything else. And we've just added ADC as a service. So in cases where for AWS, we started there, and we're going to add Azure and Google as well. So where customers are saying, like, look, I don't want to manage the VPX. I don't want to manage that. I love the ADM service for the control plane. I also want data plane management from you, right? So that's kind of what ADC as a service is part of this. Second, applications are getting modernized. You're seeing a lot of cloud-native microservices, especially for the load balancing across the north-south traffic, not east-west within it. Customers are starting to use. We're seeing a lot of Red Hat has been a great partner of ours. Really enabling modern microservices with ADS and ADM for observability, especially for the north-south traffic, right? It's definitely picked up a lot over the past few years. And last is, we are integrating a lot of the application security capabilities within our application delivery platform itself, right? The question, and so basically, whether you want to turn on next generation WAF, API protection, bot protection, it's just, think of it as a feature box, checkbox capability we've kind of built into that, whether it's through a appliance mode or through our cloud service as well. And especially API and bot protection, we've seen a lot of increase of that, given a lot more customers are exposing these applications through APIs, or they're automating it using through bots. So and so we are really excited as well, building those natively into that, so customers who are using our ADC on-prem in the cloud as a service get to turn on application security capabilities without looking at another third party and trying to integrate all these things together. So definitely exciting. I would say, last slide, why you want to select this, built for hybrid multi-cloud, simple, predictable, lower cost, especially with our pool licensing and SaaS licensing approach, and providing you the best secure user experience you get to expect, right? And you don't have to be kind of locked into a single cloud or single vendor for any of that stack. So that's the last slide, Peter, and I know we have about 6 minutes left for any Q&A.
Yeah, no, makes sense. We have a few of them, and thanks, Sridhar. I mean, it's great to see. I think, to your point, specifically around SPA, I mean, that part integrates so well with the broader conversation around DaaS, because you can just move the application to where it's optimal from security, performance, sustainability, manageability, whatever, but not have to run everything virtualized if the web app is okay and if you want to have a native user experience. I think one of the things we also add the secure browser capability, not just the secure browser that runs in the cloud, but also the embedded one that you can get all your apps, regardless if you put security applications or not, that it gets to that. So you have a consistent user experience, but you're using the local Chromium browser to kind of own the user experience and still provide the correct capability and so forth. So I guess we will see more on that side as well.
Yeah,
cool.
I mean, think about it. We provide the platform and infrastructure for secure access to enterprise resources, right? Whether you want to virtualize it, through some kind of a DaaS or hybrid offering for virtual apps or desktops, whether you want to do a VPN or remote PC or now secure private access, you have the option, flexibility to use the right tool for the right use case and leverage the same infrastructure, right? For management, onboarding, users, analytics, and everything else. So you don't have to kind of pick a lot of different solutions that you kind of have to integrate together.
Yeah. No, I think that's what we've been missing a little bit, and now bringing it together in a really nice way. So, one question from the audience as well was, based on previous response, the Citrix Virtual App Premium CCU didn't give you the right to deliver single session, let's say Windows 10, but then looking at the metrics, the DaaS Premium does. So are we automatically transformed from an older license to this new DaaS, or is there any additional cost since you added functionality? So I guess CVA couldn't do single session, and DaaS Premium can. So I guess then we're adding that capability, so to say, like from CVA Premium to DaaS Premium.
Yeah.
So there's no strings attached. We're not adding any.
Yeah, and it's kind of the local host apps kind of a scenario.
Yeah, or single. I mean, the single session, that's Windows 10, right? So with DaaS Premium or CVA Premium, you cannot deliver Windows 10, but with DaaS Premium you can. So we're giving that capability as people transfer from one premium to another. So that was. I should just say yes to the question instead of trying to get myself into the weeds there. Cool. All right. Wrapping this up a little bit, one of the things that we talked about the last time or 2 sessions ago was Rendezvous 2, and the Rendezvous 2 protocol enables you to get to a resource location also for the control traffic without cloud connectors. And then we were discussing a little bit about either domain joined, non-domain joined, or Azure AD domain joined, which seemed to be more of a popular thing, external consultant and stuff like that. And there still seem to be some issues around, let's say, single sign-on and stuff like that. It's a bit of a. I just want to say to the audience, we're planning on having a dedicated session on this because it's a great interest and it expands the flexibility. But just wanted to ask you around that piece. So when I mean single sign-on means I log in with something, get my desktops on the screen, click and start it. On Azure AD, I believe you still get challenged by a username and password because we're unable to use FAS in that scenario, right?
Yeah, so let me explain a little bit what we're doing there as well as address the single sign-on question. I think one, for certain use cases, especially if it's a non-domain joined VM or an Azure AD joined VM, or if you have 10 VMs and you're using Azure, for as an example, connectors is an overkill for that, right? Because if you got 10 VMs, now you got to put 2 connectors for fault, and that just extra 2 VMs, you don't need it. So the Rendezvous V2 and the connector less is the support where all the VDAs, can directly talk to the Citrix Cloud Control Plane, right? If they're running, and assuming they're using Azure, provisioning and everything else, and they don't need AD and LDAP support and everything else, right? So with those conditions met, absolutely, I think that's a great use case. We are working with Microsoft on avoiding the double sign-on, single sign-on for Azure AD. Expect that coming out pretty soon. In fact, that was one of the key topics we discussed with the Azure AD team last week as well. We were there, so that's just a matter of time when we will support it. We'll still have the connector deployment where customers need AD and LDAP support as well, or sometimes in a large deployment, Peter, when you have hundreds or even thousands of VM. Customers don't want all of them, all the VDS be talking outbound to the control plane in our cloud, and they like the connector because they can use it as a proxy, put all the security policies there, and better control manageability. For us, look, it's different use cases, and we want to support both, right? But for a lot of small deployments, yeah, connectorless, especially for Azure AD native provisioning and others, works pretty well.
Okay, good. No, I wanted to bring it in there because I received some questions recently on this, and just to say to the audience that we are getting back with more conversation around this session continuity and some of the other stuff as a dependency in this conversation as well. All right, Sridhar, I think we're at the top of the hour. I want to try to be a little bit on time. So if there's any more questions, I don't think there is actually. So thanks for taking the time, Sridhar. Always very interesting to speak with you. And for the audience, we're coming back in 12th of May. So one of the products that we touched on a little bit is analytics. And this time we will bring both the PMs from both security analytics and performance analytics together with Kent Mogensen, which is a customer who's been using analytics for a while, and he's going to come and tell us how they managed to run their operations in a better way using analytics. So if you're interested, please sign up for that one.
Yeah, great. Looks like a great session you got in May. So excited for that. And Peter, thank you so much. And thanks everybody for joining in for this tech talk and having a great conversation. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thanks everyone. Then we'll wrap this up. Bye now.